so I feel like it's that way too with lean, because sometimes when you go to solve a problem, you may expect to go out to the shop floor and solve that problem, but maybe the person that's running the machine doesn't expect you to be there, or if they do, they don't expect you to have the answers.
Today, I'm excited to welcome Jason Henderson to the show. Now, Jason has a really diverse continuous improvement background, and today we had a really interesting conversation on the whole idea of managing expectations. And what was interesting about it was Jason's background, as you'll hear, is pretty diverse. So he's got he's been in like a physical trainer, he's been in all kinds of martial arts, and then obviously now he's deep into continuous improvement. But what's interesting is in all these areas of our lives, there's always expectations, and managing them can be tricky, and especially tricky in continuous improvement. And so that's what we talk about today. We talk about, what does it mean to manage expectations, but also what happens when your expectations don't align with the people that you're working with, or perhaps you're trying to help someone improve and they have different expectations than you. What do you do in those situations? And so Jason has some really good insight and some really good ideas, and I really enjoyed the conversation. So show notes can be found over at dembapodcast.com. Look for episode 526. Also, be sure to scroll down and connect with Jason over on LinkedIn, and let him know that you appreciate him coming on to the show. Okay, enough from me. Let's get to the show. Jason, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well, Ron. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, doing great. Where are you calling in from?
So I live in Columbus, Indiana.
Indiana. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, where is that?
So it's about 45 minutes south of Indianapolis.
I see. Okay. South of Indianapolis. All right. I grew up in Greenville, Ohio. So,
Okay.
Yeah. So, been all over Indiana, but I've never been to Columbus, Indiana. So awesome. All right. Well, hey, man, as you know, we like to begin all of our episodes with our guest sharing a quote. So what do you got?
So I have two quotes for you today. The first one is my own quote, and I've said this now for years. I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. I just have to get all the smartest people in the room to work together.
That's sometimes very difficult too.
Oh, yes.
The smarter they are, the harder sometimes, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, cool. What's your other one?
Oh, so the other quote, we'll probably talk about this a little bit. I've been in industry now for about 11 or 12 years, but before that, I was a personal trainer. And so I had a client who was from Colombia, and he always said, "Vaca ladrona no olvida el portillo." And so basically what that means is it kind of translates like the thief cow never forgets the gate. And the story behind that was he grew up on a farm in the mountains, and they had the fence and they had the cows, and he would always they would like undo the fence, kind of cut it a little bit to go in and help some of the cows out to do whatever they had to do. And when they came out, they would always mend the fence back. And he said that most of the cows never ever even paid attention to it, but there was always one cow that would find his way out. He'd find that hole in the fence and he'd get himself out. So I thought that was a good quote for lean, because there's always some issue that escapes or something that escapes us. It's almost as if the problem finds its way out of the fence that we're trying to put it in, so to speak.
I guess the natural lean thinking question is, why in the world did they just build a gate that it is open and shut,
Right. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. All right. Well, hey, Jason, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your background, how you got involved in continuous improvement, and what you're up to these days.
Sure. I'd be happy to. So I started off when I was a kid. I was when I say kid, like a young teen, I was very much into fitness. And this is what kind of started me down the path. Is I always wanted to know, what muscles does it take to do this? What muscles does it take to do this? And so I asked around. I started interviewing people, and I just didn't get any answers that I was pleased with or thought that worked. So what I did was I took a page out of an anatomy book that had muscles and bones, because I figured, well, if I know what they are and where they are, then maybe I'll know how to work them better. And so I've always had that curious mindset. I've always had that investigative, wanting to understand the resource type of thinking. And so that started me on a journey through fitness, and I ended up spending 2 decades in fitness as a personal trainer, fitness instructor, martial arts instructor. And as my family got older, I went back to school at 38 years old. My family started to grow, and that was a great beginning and an eye-opening journey for me, because I had to understand how to learn again in a different way. So I went through school, got my associates, my bachelor's, and I have a class left on my master's in engineering. And throughout that time, I kind of pieced a career together out of different opportunities. So actually worked at Toyota Industrial for a while as a temporary, and then worked at a wheel company. And then after that, I worked for a large automotive supplier. And for the past 6 months, I've worked for Knauf Insulation, which is in Shelbyville, Indiana. So it's about 40 minutes from where I'm at. And that's just been a great company. I am learning a lot about lean and continuous improvement. And so it's been great so far.
So, what kind of martial arts? I'm curious.
Oh, everything. Just everything. So when I was younger, I wrestled, and I coached wrestling for 10 years, kickboxing, karate, Wing Chun Kung Fu, Tai Chi, some Eskrima, some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've kind of been around the map on that.
Yeah, so I was a wrestler growing up in Ohio as well, just in high school, or middle school and high school. But my daughter, several of my kids have actually done jiu-jitsu, but I have a daughter right now who I'm living vicariously through. I'll admit it. She's, what is it, Wally? She's, I should know that she's 10, and, boy, she's good at jiu-jitsu. Just like I just brought her for like one class, and she's only been doing it for like 4 months. And, but even like in our first class, cause she's a hard worker around the house. She's like our workhorse. If you can't find Molly, she's got like a broom and she's cleaning off the deck, or she's wrangling. Funny Molly story. I don't know why I'm sharing this, but we have chickens, and she's also impatient. And so sometimes we'll clip the chicken's wings, so they can't fly over the fence. We don't hurt the chicken. Don't worry. And she said, Mom, we need to go cut the chicken's wings. And my wife was just like, oh, okay. So my wife kept blowing her off, and eventually Molly grabbed some scissors and ran out there and just grabbed the chicken herself, and she clipped all their wings. She goes, I got it done, Mom. So she's a hard worker, but yeah, watching her do jiu-jitsu, just incredible. Like her balance and her, it's just really fun. Cause I know from wrestling, some kids you kind of almost have a natural knack for body positioning. It's kind of like it's like building a puzzle, really, and wrestling and jiu-jitsu. So anyhow, I thought about that when you said jiu-jitsu. So good stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I bet you there's lots of parallels that we could get into between things like fitness and training and the intentionality that requires, and lean, right? And there's tons of parallels that I see between these two worlds. So good stuff. Now, okay, so talk a little bit more then about your lean journey. So like, did you kind of get started with your current company, or had you been dabbling in it before?
So when I started about 11 years ago, I just worked as a temp, and so I was in the quality department. I learned things about warranty and insurance, and then some data management tools. So I kind of put some of those together, but I really didn't get into like the statistics part, and nobody was really, and it's nobody's fault. It's just, that wasn't my job, is to understand the lean aspects of stuff. Mm-hmm. Even though I was doing things like check sheets and some of those types of things, investigation. When I got into my next company, the director of quality decided that I need to learn about statistics. And so I got a very interesting course in statistics where he made me plot the points out by hand, and we talked about the histogram, we talked about the natural shape of things.
Nice.
And then do the math behind some of the X bar R charts and stuff like that.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, I really appreciate it now because it gives you that extra depth of knowledge. So
You don't need no mini tab, man. Just give me some piece of paper and some dots, right?
yeah, I'll be back in a couple hours.
Right. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right. Well, hey, so today, Jason, I guess our topic is going to be managing expectations, which is a really interesting topic to me because, boy, expectations are all around us, right? Whether it's in continuous improvement or in life, really. So I guess to open up with, my question is, what does managing expectations, just flat out stated, what's that mean to you?
So a lot. It means quite a bit to me. If I go back to my first quote, if I go into the room and I think that I'm going to be the smartest person, that changes the expectation. That changes the outcome of what can happen. And that puts me in a position where I can't fully and effectively help people. And their expectation is for me to do that. So whether they're, rocket scientists or not, it doesn't matter, whomever it is. I want to have that openness and that understanding that I can do whatever I can to help. And so their expectation on me is that I will try to help them fix something. And then my expectation of them is just that they'll listen to me and learn. Mm-hmm. But there's so many parallels, as you say, with fitness and martial arts. Well, as a personal trainer, people would come in and they want to lose weight or they want to work on their health or do this or that. And so that's their expectation. And so then it becomes my responsibility to help them get there. Mm-hmm. So, one of the other things, since we talked about jiu-jitsu a little bit, is most of the martial arts I've done have been like street type of martial arts, so self-defense as opposed to sport. And there's good stuff on both sides of that. If I go into the octagon and I'm fighting somebody, those two people that go in there, they have the expectation that they're going to fight. That happens. That's just the way it is. If I'm out of the street and just, I come out from a restaurant with my wife and then somebody attacks me, then that's different, right? Because not both people are expecting that. So I feel like it's that way too with lean, because sometimes when you go to solve a problem, you may expect to go out to the shop floor and solve that problem, but maybe the person that's running the machine doesn't expect you to be there, or if they do, they don't expect you to have the answers. So there's just a lot of parallels with that, and there's just a lot of value in trying to help people understand why they need what they need or what they want, and getting them to really unlock is a big thing. It's a big payoff for me.
So do you have any examples or stories of times where maybe your expectations didn't align with, the person you were walking up to there at work, or, in your training or whatever it was?
Sure, yeah. So at the company I was at before this, that's where I actually went through Six Sigma training and became a black belt, and now I'm working on my MBB. But I had a project in the plant, and every project that had been in that plant up to that point had gotten canceled or didn't come out with the right expectation. So there was a little bit of I'm not sure about this guy feel to it, right? Mm-hmm. So the best thing I can do is just be transparent and be honest and say, hey, look, we've got this problem. I'd like to try and help you solve it. I'm not an expert, but if we work together, we can get there. And this project got when I was running it, almost got canceled twice, and then we kind of had to escalate, and we kind of had to get some people tuned to that thinking. And what came out of it was that a lot of folks that didn't believe in lean and continuous improvement, or didn't have enough experience in it, started to become believers because they saw the results. And it was really just about us taking a defect out of a part. And it was something that we couldn't measure with a specific gauge. So there was a visual inspection. We had to create criteria for that. We ran an MSA, and then started to stoke that fire, and they started to see, okay, well, now I understand. This is what I'm doing. This is what it should look like. This is what it shouldn't look like. And then we went to do the design of experiments. We started messing around with the variables, and they could see the structure, and they could see how we were doing it. And it was highly successful. And I remember staying at the plant. I had to call my wife and say, I'm going to be home late. And I think it was like midnight, one in the morning, something like that before I got done, and I'd start in the afternoon. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting about this whole thing with expectations, have you dabbled with Toyota Kata, scientific thinking, or anything like that at all?
Yeah. So I'm doing a kata right now. So my first one, actually.
So what's cool about that scientific thinking framework is, you know, one of the questions we ask in there is, you know, after we make a plan and then we make a prediction, you know, on what do we think is going to happen? So, you know, what do we expect? Right. And what's freeing about it, at least it was for me when I first really started to adopt this way of thinking, was sort of takes the pressure off of being right or knowing the answer. Or so if you're collaborating with another person who also has no idea what's going to happen, or even that they need to make something better, you can sort of enter into this together arm to arm and say, oh, what do you think's going to happen? You know, and neither of you know. Right. And so you write it down and you're sort of entering into it, you know, just with curiosity, really. And then you just play out the experiment or the action or whatever it is that what that next step was outlining, and you see what actually happens and then what you learn. And so it's this beautiful dance, really, that I think, and that's why we're so passionate about scientific thinking here at Gemba Academy, is because, you know, it is the way, you know, towards continuous improvement. Yes, all the tools are important, and you need to know all these tools, you know, so you can take a good next step, because it might be that we need to do an MSA, right? It's like, well, what's an MSA? Well, it's called a measurement, you know, and so you got to learn, right? You got to learn how to do that. You got to go to class, you got to take the training, whatever it is. But knowing it in and of itself, who cares? It's like, you know, might not need an MSA, but when you do, all right, what do you expect? What do you think's going to happen? Well, I think this measurement system here is amazing. It's $1 million piece of equipment. It was just calibrated to the gold standard. Oh, wonderful. So play out the MSA, and guess what? Wah, wah, wah. It's terrible, right?
Right. Yeah.
You know, and, but you learned, right? And so I could have the expectation that I'm pretty confident we're going to fail this MSA, right? And you could have the expectation that this is $1 million piece of equipment. This thing is going to be great. And okay, let's write it down and then see what actually happens. What do you think about that whole framework with scientific thinking and managing expectations that way?
Oh, I absolutely. And what's interesting about this is that when I was a personal trainer, I always kind of took that approach, the scientific approach. I'm not just going to stand here and count repetitions for you. We need to understand why this is working, right? This works, this doesn't work. And what's interesting about that too is that you'll get folks that do you have any injuries? Nope, no injuries. I'm gold. And then about halfway through the workout, I was in a car wreck like 6 months ago.
Yeah, my back is starting to,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that would have been good to know at the beginning. But it's the same thing here. I mean, just taking that scientific approach and just putting the egos aside and just looking at the problem for what it is and trying to understand and fix it. And that's really what every company wants. They just want folks that integrate, that work together well, and that can get the problem done, get it solved.
Now, what do you do in those situations where you're trying to collaborate with another person on some endeavor, whatever that might be, and that person is presenting perhaps even negativity, or they're just not excited to be at the gym, or they're not excited for you to do this Kaizen event in their area because this lean thing, I've seen this before, flavor of the month or whatever it might be. So you almost have negative expectations. Have you experienced that? And if so, like, what are some ideas for countering that?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's just human nature, right? It all comes back to behaviors and communication and that sort of thing, in my opinion. And so when I run into that, it's still, for me, it's still that thing of, hey, look, you're an expert in your field. I am not. I am not going to tell you how to do your job, but I just want to show you a different way of thinking so that maybe we can entertain some ideas that maybe this isn't working the way we think it's working. I'm going to rely on you to tell me about what it is you do so I can understand it more and try to help map it out. And what's really been good is when you start mapping out the process, it's amazing what people see that they didn't see. Again, with fitness, it's like, I'm not going to give you a diet plan. Just write down everything that you're eating for 2 weeks. And what you don't realize is you go buy that bowl of chips and you eat some, right? You go buy that, the candy store and you eat it and you don't think about it. It becomes second nature. And so we do that with our jobs too. And so I just try to get that point across and just to let everybody know, hey, look, we're in this together. Let's work on it. If I'm stepping out of line or if you think I'm missing something, you tell me. I'm here for you. And I think when you turn it around like that and they understand that you just want to help, it's not about, I have to bring in $1 million cost savings or I've got KPIs for it's not about that. If I fix a problem that's this small, I'm still fixing a problem. You're fixing it with me. It's going to have a ripple effect. It's going to affect the other parts of the process. And at very least, you're going to see that other people are going to understand that, oh yeah, they went over here and they worked on this. And so then that's how you really build that culture. And Knopf's great because we have had a really strong CI culture since 2016. And then in 2021, we started to move that into the office. And so I work mostly in the corporate office. And so that's been great because I've been able to work with some folks that maybe had some doubts. Who's this new guy that just keeps walking around and introducing himself, that kind of thing. But we're all in it together. And that's what I really want to get across is that that's what CI is about. It's a team effort. It's a team sport, right?
Yeah. 100%. So I'm wondering, Jason, if there's someone listening right now who is maybe they're early on in their continuous improvement, their lean journey, and I don't know, maybe they're just struggling or something like that. Like speak to that person. Like what advice do you have to help that person navigate these early days?
Well, so for me, this has been a faith journey too. So I'm a Lutheran. This has been a situation where I've been put in and blessed with these opportunities by God. So it's been a great thing for me. It's been a faith thing. But aside from that, what I would tell people is don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And I know that's hard sometimes for folks. I'm very extroverted, so it's easier for me. And I understand for some folks it's not, but just put yourself out there a little bit and just ask some questions and don't be afraid to ask for help or don't be afraid to say, I don't know. But we can figure it out together. And I think that will help folks, drive that CI type of mindset. And then you're going to start seeing again that ripple effect where people are coming together and they're wanting to understand how you're looking at things. And, if you're straight out of college or if you haven't gone to college, I would do all I could to learn some tools, some lean tools. They're great. And you don't have to know every single one of them. There's just too many to memorize in a short period of time. It's almost like it's its own discipline. So it's almost like going to college again, except you get college every day for the rest of your life. So just don't be afraid to learn. Don't be afraid to ask. And, it's going to be surprising, I think, for some people if you do that to see what comes out of it.
If you could go back to the day that you first were introduced to continuous improvement, to lean, to Six Sigma, whatever it was, and you had 10 minutes to spend with yourself, and like Jason today could go back to that person back then, to Jason back then, would there be any advice you would give to that person, to Jason before?
Yeah, I think it would be always keep learning. Just keep learning.
Or maybe like if you could do something over again is another way of thinking about it. Like how you started. Was there anything that you wish, gosh, if I would have known that? Like for me, it's scientific thinking. Like had I known about scientific, Mike Rother hadn't done a research yet, so it couldn't have happened. But had it been available when I first started, boy, oh boy, how much more successful I think I would have been. Like that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think for me it was so I had some difficulties trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. So that as far as college was concerned and stuff, so it took me a while. Mm-hmm. And I listened to my wife, and then if I had done that from the beginning, that would have been a lot better. But I think it's just really a matter of if I could go back and do anything or say anything to myself would be take this tool set, work on it, build on it, go out and see how it applies to different areas on the shop floor or in the office. See what you can do to make some improvements and see if you can get some people to give you some feedback on it, and then go back and try to improve it again.
Yeah. Always listen to your wife, guys. That's all the men out there who are married. Listen to your wife. That's good advice right there.
Rule number one. Yep.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. All right. Well, hey, Jason, this has been a lot of fun. If folks want to connect with you personally, what's the best way?
So I'm on LinkedIn. You can also reach me at Jason Henderson 74 at outlook.com. Drop me a line. Let's talk about lean. I love it. I don't get tired of talking about it. I'll learn something from you, and you learn something from me, hopefully, and then we'll all be a little bit better off for it.
Awesome. Well, we'll get your LinkedIn connected here on the show notes, so everybody just kind of scroll down on the app there, whatever you're listening on, and let's all go connect with Jason. And man, hey, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much, Ron. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Take care.
You too.
Thanks for listening. Whether you've been on the continuous improvement journey for many years, or perhaps you're just getting started, Gemba Academy is here to support you. And while we're best known for our more than 1,500 Lean and Six Sigma teaching and virtual tour videos, we also have a team of experienced Lean and Six Sigma practitioners available for one-on-one coaching, as well as a variety of Lean and Six Sigma certification options. To learn more and to schedule a demo, head on over to gembaacademy.com.